You are an acclaimed science writer and then through this book, an expert in human connection.
Often connection is very close to us. It's sometimes literally within arm's reach, and we just don't recognize that fact.
I'm looking for the secret ingredients of confidence.
When we talk about confidence, I think we often believe we have to kind of project someone who we're not and to kind of fake it till we make it. But I don't think that's true. Actually, we can be our full selves, and that can be showing the bits that we're really proud of and the bits that we're really ashamed of. But by showing the full picture, we actually build that connection much more strongly.
So, this is your book, your latest book about the 13 social strategies that will transform your life, the laws of connection. And it's really, I can confirm it's absolutely brilliant.
Thank
So,
you.
for anyone who hasn't read it yet, what are the laws of connection?
Yeah, so there are 13 principles that are very easy to apply, but based on a lot of good scientific research that should help us to build more authentic, genuine relationships with people. And what I found really powerful about this whole spate of new findings in psychology is that often connection is very close to us. It's sometimes literally within arm's reach, and we just don't recognize that fact. And we have these kind of biases. I guess our brains are just a bit too pessimistic about our potential to form connection. But by applying these 13 laws, we can find that it's much easier to achieve than we would expect. And so it's got a very optimistic but realistic message, I hope.
Yeah, it's a super positive and it's a very practical read as well. And you are an acclaimed science writer and then through this book, an expert in human connection. But I'm really interested in what kind of scientific disciplines you would say underpinned this work.
I mean, it's primarily, I guess, psychology, but it also
Yeah.
has quite a bit of neuroscience there to understand, what's going on in the brain, to
Yeah.
explain the behaviors that we see, and also some medicine. So the first chapter is all about the power of social connection and why it's so important to us. And there's just a whole host of these epidemiological studies that have shown that social connection, however you measure that, whether it's the size of your social network, whether it's how socially supported you feel, so a very subjective measure,
Mm.
they all point in the same direction, showing that social connection is essential for our health and well-being and even our longevity. So it can actually help you to live a longer and happier life if you have more people that you trust and that you feel truly understand you around you.
So I want to talk about confidence because I'm looking for the secret ingredients of confidence. So that's a slightly narrower scope than your book, but I'm wondering which of your laws of connection do you think can help people boost their confidence?
I think that underlying the whole of the book is a kind of principle of authenticity. So to kind of break that down, we know that one of the best ways to form social connection with other people is to develop what's known as a shared reality. And that is that you both have faith in the fact that you're viewing the world in the same way. So that might involve, say, having the same political beliefs. But it could also be, and I think more importantly, involves the sense that you have the same visceral kind of gut reactions to events. So you're interpreting the sights that you see in the same way. If you see two people arguing, that you both agree on who is reasonable, who is unreasonable, or you laugh at the same joke, even if no one else finds it funny, the person that you're connecting with finds it funny. So, very specific experiences that we share with another person. Now that has to come with like this sense of trust, I think, because you can't have a shared reality if you don't trust that the other person is being genuine, that they're being authentic, that they're telling you the truth, and that they're showing who they really are. And so
Mm.
throughout the laws of connection, we see that the more open we are with other people, the more we reveal of ourselves, our true selves, the easier it is to form that connection with other people. And so when we talk about confidence, I think we often believe we have to kind of project someone who we're not, um, and to kind of fake it till we make it. But I don't think that's true. Actually, we can be our full selves, and that can be showing the bits that we're really proud of and the bits that we're really ashamed of. But by showing the full picture, we actually build that connection much more strongly. And you can see that in figures like Princess Diana. I think it was, we saw every part of her, all of her weaknesses, but also all of her strengths. And that's why she had such an impact on the public. And obviously,
Yeah.
that has been repeated so often now, the more open celebrities are. But I think, in any area of life, that is equally true. To just be more ourselves is so fundamental.
So, are there any practical strategies you think we can use to find the confidence to be more ourselves and also to encourage other people to be more themselves?
So one exercise that I really love, I think is a good way to practice this, is the fast friendship procedure.
The fast
Right.
friendship method, the fast
Procedure. Yeah.
procedure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was developed in New York by a group of psychologists at NYU. And essentially, they wanted to see how quickly you could build intimacy between two people. So they took these strangers into the laboratory and said, we've got 45 minutes. Here are 36 questions that you should use as discussion prompts during this conversation. Half the group were given 36 kind of prompts for small talk, so they were totally fine discussion points. It'd be like, what did you do for Halloween? Where do you like going on holiday? But they're quite bland. For the fast friendship procedure, which was the experimental intervention, the questions were aiming to dig a bit deeper. So to just get people to share more of themselves to whatever degree they felt comfortable. These questions were things like, if your house was burning down and you'd saved your family and pets, what one object would you go back in to try to save? Something of real sentimental value that can be a bit revealing about our past, what matters to us. It might lead you to talk about a very precious memory or person. Another was, if as you age, you could have either the mind or the body of a 30-year-old, what would you choose to keep? And so I think that tells us a
Which
little
one
about
would you choose?
tough, yeah. And
Yeah.
another one is kind of what do you think is too serious to joke about? And so I think that gets us to talk a little about what we hold sacred. So you can see they're just prompting people to talk about stuff that really matters to them.
Yeah. And in a very gentle way, because if I was to say to you, David, what's sacred to you, you find that very hard. But by using these questions are opportunities to tell stories, aren't they?
Exactly.
And that really helps us to connect to other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and so that's exactly what they found was that when people had done this, they felt a lot closer than those who were just engaging in small talk. And actually, they compared how close they felt to these new acquaintances with how close they felt, or people in general feel to some of their oldest friends. And what they found was that it was already pretty comparable. So, over 45 minutes, they really had built quite a profound connection with them.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about fast friendships. You also write about frenemies. So these are the ambivalent relationships. Can you explain what a frenemy is?
But yeah, frenemies are those people who blow hot and cold. Sometimes they can be really supportive and you can rely on them in a crisis. And then the next time you go to them for help, they'll just be really critical of how you've behaved,
Mm.
or they'll get very jealous very easily. So you might feel that you can go to them with a problem, but you don't want to tell them about your new promotion or the fact that you're pregnant or, your great new boyfriend or girlfriend because they're going to lash out and say something mean. And what the research shows is that, friendship in general is very good for our health and well-being, but frenemies are terrible. They're actually worse than those people who are consistently nasty to you. Someone being unreliable like this, holding you on that knife edge, it puts us into a heightened state of stress because we kind of care what they say because when they're nice, it matters to us. But then we're always slightly nervous about whether they're going to lash out the next minute. And so that raises levels of cortisol. Even if we just know that we're going to have to see them, we know they're in the next room and we're going to have to see them. You can already see that people showed this kind of stress response. And the research shows there's an older study, but also a new one that's just coming out over the next few months that show that actually this affects our biological aging. So again, it's related to longevity and mortality. So the more frenemies you have in your life, the faster you age because of all the stress they're bringing you.
Wow, that's so interesting, isn't it? So having people who are not consistently, and it's the consistency that's the key thing. It's not because you can have people in your life who are consistently unsupportive or miserable, and or you can have people who are consistently positive and nice, but it's the ones that go up and down that
Yeah.
cause you to be more stressed out, and that affects your confidence.
Yeah, totally. Because so I've got some kind of acquaintances who I'd say are just pretty consistently detached. Like I don't expect to rely on them, but I'd rather hang about with them than one of these frenemies who is going to, they're like it's like playing conversational like Russian roulette, essentially.
Mm.
You have no idea when they're going to lash out at you, and that is so stressful that ultimately causes us to have this kind of faster biological aging. And the sad thing is that a lot of romantic relationships end up being like that. Like a lot of spouses can be hot and cold, and
Yeah.
living with someone like that is the worst thing because each day is this source of tension for you.
Yes. I was going to say, asking for a friend, can frenemies be family members, not necessarily your spouse, but somebody,
Oh yeah, I mean it
yeah.
can be your parents. I mean, I think parents are the classic frenemy in some ways for lots of people, but like how hypercritical sometimes our family members can be of us. And so,
Mm,
every time we know we're going to see them, we feel nervous when actually the ideal would be that we would know that they support us in whatever we do.
yeah.
Um, and that doesn't, I guess, with all of this, it doesn't mean that like the people we love have to always agree with us, but you'd hope that there will be a constructive way of giving you the negative feedback. And so that is
Yeah.
another one of the laws of connection. It's about how, honesty is super important in relationships. You can't have this shared reality if you're not honest, but there's a way of being honest and constructive, or a way of being just kind of frank and rude and nasty
Yeah.
that is not constructive. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk practically. What should we do once we've identified these frenemies? Do we cut them off?
Well, I mean, I have cut a few off. So, which is funny because when I wrote the book, I was kind of like, oh no, we don't want to lose these people. Like, I'm not advocating like detoxifying your social life. And then actually, I wrote the book and kept on dealing with these people. And I was like, actually, I've just got limited patience and limited time. And I think that was almost a consequence of having learnt the laws of connection. I kind of realized, well, I don't have to rely on these people if they're just going to treat me, in a way that isn't good for my health and well-being. Um, it empowered me to know that actually social connection is there with so many other people
Yeah.
that I don't have to rely on those people. So it's not like I've had any big fallings out, but it's just like, I'm, I would say rather than cutting them out of my life, it's more about holding them at a distance.
So you mentioned feedback. What are some of your findings around feedback and connection?
Okay, so being honest is super important. So the
Yeah.
laws of connection, again, they're not about kind of trying to seem super charismatic or even super kind to people. There was one study that directly compared groups of participants who are either told to, go about your daily life being as kind as you can to the people you interact with, or as honest as you can to the people that you deal with. And what they found was that both actually showed benefits to their well-being, their sense of their relationships, compared to people who just carried on as normal. So
Yeah.
it's good to hold some of the one of those goals in mind. But the added advantage of honesty was that people felt that the interactions were more meaningful. So even if they were a bit awkward sometimes, they felt that by the end they had achieved, I guess, they felt closer to the people in some ways because at
Mm,
last they had kind of broken through this barrier and there was greater mutual understanding because of their honesty.
yeah.
So that bearing that in mind, how can we do this in the kindest way possible? Because
Mm,
ultimately, I think we can do both together. And when we're giving negative feedback, essentially, we should be constructive. I think that goes without saying. So, you're telling people stuff that they can improve. You're not being deliberately hurtful without there being any potential gain for the person who's hearing it.
yeah.
I think precision is the key as well. So actually, telling someone exactly what wasn't working in their presentation, for example, is so much more effective than just saying that I don't like it. And then, if you can, try to give some advice on how you think that they might improve or offer your resources. Let them know that you're available to help them to cope with the kind of fallout of what you've told them.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my three basic tips, I think, is
Yes.
just, make sure that you're allowing them to use this for personal growth. And what the research shows is people really appreciate personal growth. And once you've given them that negative feedback, they'll actually feel closer to you because of that, because you've shown your investment in their development compared to if you told them a white lie, which actually most people are pretty good at detecting. And it makes them feel more distant from you because you've shown you're kind of more willing to avoid the awkwardness of the conversation rather than really caring about the fidelity of the relationship or, how they're going to develop in the future.
Yeah. And as I was reading about that, I was reminded of a couple of times I've been given some really hard feedback and thinking how hard it must have been for the people who gave me that feedback to make the effort to do it.
Yeah.
And but I definitely feel so grateful to them and so much more connected that they did make the effort to do it because it's, as you say, it's very hard to do it kindly and with confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of think we're doing someone a kindness with a white lie, but actually, most people can detect that they don't
Yeah.
like it. It feels insulting. It feels paternalistic. It's almost like they're treating you as a child. But yeah, to have the confidence to say to someone, like, I know you can do better, that can actually feel very empowering.
Yeah. Another concept that I loved in your book is the liking gap. So you found that people like us more than we think. How do you know that?
Yeah, I mean, this was personally very important for me because I was a very shy person, from my teens, through my 20s, kind of lingering into my 30s. And I would always have this. Often I'd be fine like meeting people for the first time. Like I would love that the challenge of the initial conversation and like the uncertainty can be quite like thrilling actually.
Yeah.
But then but then you go away afterwards and you start thinking, oh, like that was awkward. I should have said, that maybe I sounded a bit clumsy in this part of the conversation, or was I boring? We have all of those
Yes, the
doubts.
hangover,
Yeah.
walking away. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then what the research on the liking gap shows is that those worries are often completely unfounded.
And you're almost disconnecting from yourself there, aren't you? Because you're not trusting your own instincts.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so this isn't foolproof. Like sometimes we're gonna slightly overestimate how much we like someone compared to how much they like us. But I
Mhm.
mean, the research shows that on average, this is happening just a lot less than we expect. And we can
Mm.
we can all afford to be a little bit more confident, and we would benefit from that because it would help us to foster more connection if we just had more faith in the fact that we were likable.
Well, where do you think the disconnect comes
I
from?
mean, we know it emerges quite young in childhood, actually. So 5-year-olds don't feel it. By like 6 or 7, they're already beginning to second guess other people. And it seems to be that it's caused by that. It's once kids basically start recognizing that people might be acting polite. And so they have a front that might be masking their true
Yeah.
feelings. And from then on, the liking gap grows to this kind of size that it will be in adulthood, and that kind of it fully emerges, I guess, in early adolescence. I think what this research shows us is just that we can afford to be just a little bit more confident here. Just question those doubts and, put yourself out there. Like you can suggest meeting up with someone who you find really funny and clever and cool. And if they don't reciprocate, they'll say no, and you can just take that rejection graciously. But
Yeah.
the chances are that they probably will say yes because the odds are stacked in your favor.
That's a really good point because sometimes someone hasn't quite got you yet. It might take
Right.
them 2 or 3 goes, but if you're confident in the friendship and you pursue it a little bit, then you can win them round.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And also, I think, sometimes the liking gap can be self-reinforcing in
Hmm.
that so like I feel really bad looking back at my past when I was a shyer person and like colleagues would invite me to parties and stuff and I would kind of often reject them. And I would just say, and like I'd make an excuse to not go, because I would have this assumption that they were only asking me out of politeness. But of course, then that is making them think they had misjudged our kind
Yes.
of connection. So it's actually leading them to think, oh, maybe, maybe he doesn't like me as much as I liked
Yeah.
him. So, I think, sometimes shyness is causing people to kind of to seem reserved and disconnected from us when maybe they
Yeah.
might be. So we can also, consider that as a possibility. But also, like you said earlier, I think it's just accepting that often in these situations, it really is something about the other person. It's not about you.
Yeah.
But by putting yourself forward, there's nothing to be ashamed of if you are rejected. But again, like the thing to remember is that the chances are that you won't be rejected anyway. So that's why we can afford to be a bit braver.
Yes. What was one of the most surprising things that you discovered in the course of your research?
It's kind of like just this really easy, instant way of building social connection is to just pay more compliments to people and show more gratitude. And that is kind of obvious in a way, except that we are all terrified that by paying compliments, we're going to seem kind of ingratiating,
Yeah.
unctuous,
Disingenuous.
yeah,
Yes.
disingenuous,
Yeah.
so we don't do it. And the research shows, we miss a lot of opportunities because we have those fears. We think we're going to be clumsy at doing it. We kind of think you have to have this real kind of art to paying a delicate compliment.
Yeah. So knowing that it boosts connection can help give you the confidence to pay more compliments. Is there a tip that you can give to give a really great compliment?
Yeah, so I think any compliments or any expressions of gratitude are better than none. But really, what we want is for them to be very precise. And again, this is about that shared reality. It's showing the other person that you really understand them, that you've seen them, trying to pin it to a very specific quality within the person that you really do genuinely appreciate.
Yeah, and I can see how that's a double boost in confidence because it's obviously making them feel great, but it's also you seeing yourself as somebody who really sees other people,
Yeah.
connects with them. Yeah. One thing that I'm always encouraging my clients to do to boost their confidence is to ask for help because when you ask for help, it can help you go further. But a lot of people don't feel confident asking for help. I know that you found that that can actually boost confidence.
Asking someone for a favor actually leads them to like you a little bit more.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, there's some great experiments, like even one in the UK, in the US from, I think it was from like the 1960s or 70s, where there was this kind of really grumpy um, psychologist who was, he was kind of set up to be grumpy. He was quite unlikable, but
Mm,
then he was meant to be paying the students for the time they'd taken to do the experiment. And at the end, he was like, oh, well, here's the money, but if you don't mind, could you donate it back to me to help the laboratory with its works? And what the researchers found was that actually people ended up liking him more for asking that favor. The fact he was asking that made them like him more.
yeah. Okay. There's one other thing that I want to ask you about very quickly, if that's okay.
Sure.
We, I often find with the people I work with that they feel threatened by other people's success, or they sometimes see other people's success as a sign that they can't do what they want to do. And you talk about this lovely thing, you recommend this lovely word, confelicity.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So this is another classic example of the laws of connection where again, it's a negative expectation that we've got that people will hate us to talk about our success, that they will get jealous of us, or that we'll seem like a braggart, and that's inherently unlikable. But actually, the research shows, by not um, being honest about our successes, people find that to be very paternalistic. They're feeling patronized by the fact that if you hide a success from them and then they find out from someone else, it can feel very insulting actually, because it immediately makes you think, well, like, what did they think of me if they didn't feel that
Yeah.
they were able to share that? So, people would much prefer to hear about your successes. And rather than feeling this kind of negative envy, people, might feel what's known as benign envy. And so that is just, yeah, they would like what you have, but they see
Mhm.
you as this kind of proof that it is achievable. Even better than that, they have this sense of confelicity, just vicarious joy. They're happy for you
Yeah.
and the success that you've had. I think this is a real shift in psychology, because so often when we talk about empathy, when we talk about compassion, compassion comes from like the Latin, like compatir, to suffer with someone. But actually, we can mirror all kinds of emotions, and we're just as likely to feel empathy for someone's happiness as we are for their sadness. And actually,
Mhm.
sharing those moments of joy is really important then for cementing our friendships. And by hiding our successes, we're actually preventing people from doing that. And it's a real waste.
So it's almost like all we need for that is that shift in perspective that helps us in both directions. One
Yeah,
is that we have the right almost to share our successes, and we trust that if we communicate that in a positive way, then other people are going to share in that with us, and also to see other people's success as a sign that we can follow their lead.
exactly. So I think we have to accept it's kind of reciprocal. We don't want to be one of those ambivalent friendships, those frenemies. We don't want to be that kind of person who is actually
Mm.
very bitter at someone else's success, but expects the other person to be celebrating our own. And equally, I think if you do find that some of your friends are getting very jealous of your success, well, that if they're not willing to be happy for you in those moments, then, for me, that's a big question mark over whether that is someone who you want in your life,
Yeah.
really.
So, with everything that we've talked about, what would be one very simple thing that someone could go away and do straight away using the laws of connection to boost their confidence?
I mean, it will depend on the person, but I think a lot of us just don't even feel confident talking to strangers, when we're networking. And so, what the research shows us is that that is just a skill that comes with practice.
Connection builds confidence. And in order to get the confidence to build connection, we just need to practice it. We need to find these tiny specific actions, things that we're looking for, ways of connecting that help us reach those other people.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it is just pushing ourselves slowly out of our comfort zone, taking it one day at a time and treating ourselves with self-compassion if it doesn't go exactly as we'd planned, because all social interactions are kind of inherently uncertain. A little bit of awkwardness is kind of part and parcel of this, but the other person's not going to be focusing on that. They're most likely going to be focusing on your warmth, your friendliness, the skills that you can bring to the conversation.
David, thank you so much. You have brought the science to this conversation, which really underpins how we can boost our confidence and build connection. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for
Thank
the
you.
great questions, the great insights.
This podcast is designed to be practical. I want to actively help you boost your confidence. For that reason, each episode is accompanied by a short Substack post with a tool or an exercise to help you apply the ideas we've explored in your own life. You can find those by subscribing to In Confidence on Substack, and these posts are free for season 1 only. And if you have a question for me or a comment on one of the episodes, or you just want to say hi, you can email dearinconfidence@gmail.com, or you can WhatsApp 07377 231 025. That's all from me. See you next time.